Welcome to Hire Navigate Your Job Search. We are live on LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live. And then by Saturday afternoon, we're uploaded on all the podcast platforms, including Spotify, as well as Apple Podcasts. So get ready to amp up your career game as we dive into the ultimate job search adventure with our special guest, which we'll get to a little bit later. But you see our mission here at Hired is, to simply yet powerfully take one topic, get a really good special guest speaker on the subject, and really go full throttle into those issues and ask specific questions so that you may be able to help reduce your time in job search. With with the job market constantly evolving and layoffs becoming all too common, which I just realized and heard that there might be others that have already done layoffs that are going to be probably announcing other layoffs. We are here to make sure that you're fully equipped to handle anything that comes your way. Today we talk to Tony Rotondi, business management and advisor, network, as well as networking close to 3 decades, as he has known a thing or two. I've been trying to get Tony on the horn for quite some time. I'm glad that he's here with us. He also graduated from the same college both my boys did. So I want to welcome Tony to the show. Tony?
How you doing, George?
How you doing, sir? Hey, you wanted for our guests just kind of maybe go into a little bit of background more than what I just identified, as why people come and talk with you. Before we do, I want to share my story. I was very young in job search in 2016, and as the topic we're talking about, the non-traditional ways, I remember this discussion with Tony. I had to go on the other side of Mississippi because at that time, that's the only time people would be able to go and visit Tony. And so he was already lined up, already was working with somebody else, and then there was probably somebody waiting between the time that we were going to speak. And when I was talking to him, maybe the first couple of minutes, he said, "Stop, George. You can't be too focused, but you can't be too vague." And I'm like, "What do you mean by that?" And so he thought and pondered for probably about 10 seconds, and he goes, "Tell me your favorite baseball team." And I did. And he goes, "Well, what's your favorite position?" And I said, "Left field." And he goes, "Well, imagine that you're going to go to your team and they just signed somebody for 7, 10, 12 million a year." He says, "But you're so focused on that particular position that you didn't realize that there's a right field open, a potential, second base or whatever. You could still get on your favorite team. However, you may need to adjust a bit." And so I really took that to heart. And that really kind of formed my approach is, you know what, try a little bit of everything, because a couple of things that work for me might not work for you. So again, Tony, the floor is yours. Tell us a little bit about your background and what you've been doing and what got you into this process of helping all of us out there kind of aimlessly trying to find our next position.
Thank you for that, George. I retired a long, long time ago, some 27 years ago. Do the math. I'm 78. I was an executive in a big financial services company, a giant financial services company. And over the years, ever increasing responsibilities. It was great. But, with all that good stuff goes balancing factors.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Corporate politics, corporate egos, mine included. I would have never included that before, but I never thought about it. I wouldn't have been there. But it's those kinds of things that cause people to have significant stress, and as they get close to the end of whatever they're doing. Uh, I decided that I'd had enough. As I said, I was 51. Didn't know what I was doing. Uh, really didn't have any idea what I was doing, but I realized that I had to leave. So the first thing I did when I retired, and everybody has their ideas on what they're going to do. They always have their projects and their I'm going to volunteer and I'm going to renew old friendships and etc. That's the first thing I did, and this is pre-social media, so it was quite an effort, quite a project to endeavor. Uh, I went back and I renewed old friendships and acquaintances from every walk of my life. I found people, anybody who I had a good engagement with, a good experience with. We had fun together. We got in trouble together. We went to parties together. It's a common theme here, isn't it? Uh,
Yeah.
and we worked together. We coached youth sports together, etc. Anybody who I could think of. I went back to grade school, and I found people. Here again, pre-social media. I found people. It was harder to find them, but I found kids now of course 51 or 52 years old, and remember me, Anthony Rotondi. Oh my God, yes, we used to chase the girls around at recess. It was so fun. But you can do that in the third grade, it's fine. And then it was I called it. Now you have to understand, I didn't contact anybody who thought I was a horse's patoot or anything. uh, I contacted people who I knew would really enjoy hearing from me, and they did, and it was a lot of fun. High school, college, my army life, my work, all my workaday lives, all my personal life, etc. Anybody who I could think of. Well, that became a wonderful network, and it enhanced myself, my asset. That was that network of relationships. It was a big revelation for me that this truly is an asset, and I can use this asset for whatever I need, whenever I need it. I can use it for a second opinion on a medical procedure. I can use it for somebody to plow out my driveway and everything in between. And yes, I can use it for business purposes. And yes, I can use it for job transition if and when I'm in job transition. So that was the big revelation, one of the big revelations for me in
Hey,
retirement.
Tony, just real quick, I think there's some TV background noise. If you can take care of that, I'm going to ask a question, but
I
before I
don't, I don't,
do,
I don't have my TV on.
okay. Interestingly enough, is that it's one of the things that I learned late in life, where it's one of those other things that I think that they should teach early on in life. One of the things I told my kids is that, as you're going through college, make sure you get to know really well a doctor, a lawyer, a couple other different people's titles. This is because you will need those resources at some point in your life, and it would be really great if you really have a good relationship built over a period of time, as opposed to kind of just going through the yellow pages. I know that I'm dating myself, but
Yellow pages. Wow.
well, we're from the same generation there, pretty close. So as we rethink the job search landscape, can you discuss changing dynamics in job market and need the innovation approach? I guess more importantly, the question is what are some traditional job search methods might not be effective for everyone?
Well, here again, what I like to talk about is uh, a mindset that when people are in job transition, uh, the that this asset that they have of relationships is where you go to begin with,
Hmm.
and it is there for you can knock on the door, door will open. It is there for you, and it's a whole lot easier to meet with people that you already have a relationship with as opposed to not. Um, what's changed over the years? It used to be it used to be you go to the want ads. I mean, those are
Hmm.
the yellow pages days, and you send in you call the want ad. doing resumes, resumes are important. Sure they are. But I run into people all the time with, so what have you been doing since you've been in job transition? Well, I've been working on my resume. It's been 3 weeks now, and I have it 3 weeks. I mean, how long does it take you to define what you've been doing? Write it
Right.
down, because every person you talk to is going to have a different view of the resume on how it should look and what format it should take. So that is a procrastination, in my view. That's a rationalization that I'm doing everything I can in job search. No, you're not. Everybody knows intuitively, if not explicitly, that you have to get out of that comfort zone and
Yes.
get out and meet people. Huh? So
Yes. Hmm.
I encourage people to to do just that. Now, George, uh, you and I have talked about that. I really feel strongly that having and that background, Norris George, is not coming from me. So I don't know where it is. I feel strongly that when you set an objective that's outside your control, and we've all experienced this, where we're waiting for other people to make decisions, they have different priorities. We're waiting for decisions on funding or resources or whatever. It's a recipe for frustration. And then I see this all the time. People go through the rest, the objective is to find a job, and there's an urgency here. It's a job. What are you doing to find that job? I'm working on my resume. Well, wait a minute. The objective of finding a job is outside your control. You can't control that. What you can
Right.
control is the process. And so I strongly encourage people to have a mindset that, uh, you can't control that. Uh, the mindset is that, this is a full time job because it's important. There's an urgency here. It's a full time job to go out and seek that, to find that next great opportunity. And the mindset is that, you don't know what you don't know. So you've
Oh,
got to.
absolutely.
So that's another aspect of this that is new. It's new. It's evolved into where we are today. Is that there's so much going on out there, so many new things, so many opportunities. Just look at your cell phone and look at all those apps that are there, and they're coming fast and furious. And you look at you think about the opportunities or the titles out there, just the titles: chief learning officer, chief experience officer, chief
Yeah.
security officer, chief HR. I mean, you've got all these chiefs, and
Not enough Indians.
these are real titles, though, and they're real opportunities that when people say, "So, what are you looking for? What do you want to do? What do you?" That's a tough question. I think it's an unfair question because you're working with limited knowledge. All it could be very vast, but still, in the grand scheme of things, it's limited. So the charge is to get out there and narrow the gap of what you don't know, and that's a full time job. And there's a process. We can talk about the process if you want to go through to actually help you narrow that gap. But it's all about networking. It's all about relationship building, and the best time to do all that, of course, is when you don't need anything. And yeah, you're muted on me, George.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. What I was trying to get to is last point before we go and shift gears is one other traditional one that a lot of people fail, and they do it quite often. You've seen them on LinkedIn, especially the last 7 months. I've submitted 350 resumes and no job interviews, and it's like, okay, you're gonna send your resume into the abyss, especially if there's like on average 2 to 500 resumes, right? And it's like, the national average in order securing another opportunity through resume submission is in the single digit, just literally on the lower side of the single digits, right? And the national average to secure a job through networking is 84%. So, A, where should you be spending your time, right? You should be spending your time to network.
Mhm. Exactly.
So, shifting gears a bit is, the unconventional strategies and success stories. Can you share stories of individuals who found their dream roles through unique methods? How can, personal, or maybe even how personal hobbies or interests can leverage for job opportunities?
I think and here again, if you're out there full time meeting with people, now full time to me, just, we need to clarify this. Full time to me means 2 people a day, 10 people a week. I think beyond that is way too many. I think it starts going in here, out the other ear, uh, and it becomes more of a transaction rather than a relationship building or nurturing old relationships or reacquainting. So I think that it's a full time job. When you're spending full time meeting with people and you don't really care who they are, you're not trying to figure out who's going to help you find a job because that's out of your control. You're meeting because you have a full time job. You're meeting with 10 people a week, 2 people a day, come hell or high water. Now, as you're meeting with those people, of course, they're willing to meet with you. That's 80% of the battle, and they're willing to share their story, which is the most important part. From that, you get to you get to take like a sponge, grab that information. So I could do that. That sounds like a great opportunity. I could fit that. Does it's not within a box, but I could do that. I never thought of that. So to answer your question, George, more specifically, um, you know, there, as I said, there's a lot of new technological things out there. There's a lot of new things that never have been done before. Uh, but there's also things that are just mundane things I never thought of. And I'll give you a quick example. Uh, uh, a fellow who was a consultant, great consultant, did a lot of good stuff, a lot of good temporary management, and he was meeting with a fella, and the guy said, well, you know a lot of people in this industry. I wonder if you could open some doors for me. He says, okay, I can do that. So he did, and he introduced him to a couple of people, and why? Because you could knock on the door and the door will open. And you salespeople out there know that that's the most important part of any sale is you got to get the door open. You can't sell anything, no matter how good your product is, if you don't get somebody to listen to you. So he introduced him, and he made a sale with the first opportunity, and the second time he did it again 2 times in one morning. They struck a deal, and he became a quote unquote business developer. He had never done that before. So the moral of that quick story is he was always paid on what he knew, as a consultant and as a temporary management. Now with this, I never thought of that. I'm getting paid for who I know, not what I know. Huh? I'm getting paid on opening the door, and that's all I'm doing is just getting the door. So that's uh, you never know what's going to come from these talks. Some could be job related. Some could be just because you now have a potential for new friend, and more and importantly, you never know when you're going to get a chance to help somebody else. And who knows, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years from now, that relationship could really breed some good results.
Oh, absolutely. I think the fact is one of the things I tell people that I'm coaching with is that, what you're trying to do is establish a relationship over a period of time. And one of those processes is, and we've experienced it, where people, they network like crazy when they're job search. Then they go back and they get an offer, they go back to work, and you never hear from them again. So I
Right.
just tell them, I'm like, you know what, just send an update twice a year. Pick a couple of dates. I always pick,
Yeah.
kind of, the start of the summer, and then, maybe towards the fall, and just give a brief update. Hey, this is what's going well. Love to hear from you.
Yep.
I think it keeps those relationships live, so that when something does happen or occur, they're like, well, I got an update from you like 3 weeks ago and things were going great. Well, things happened, and I'm searching.
What and right along those lines, George, I encourage people to do little things, just as you said, little things like Friday afternoons. Nobody is sending emails out. Simple technology now like email. Uh, Nobody's sending emails. Everybody's reviewing them to catch up for the week. Block out 10 minutes. Anybody you could think of in those 10 minutes. Uh, George, it's been a long time. Tony, have you ever grown any hair? It's so cool. It,
Hey, that
but
is a good question. Have you ever grown any hair?
it's been a long time, I'll tell you that. So, uh, if you do two or three or four of those every week, and it's a two-sentence thing, and it's all about the other person. How's the new baby? How's the grandchild? How's the ball game going? Did you ever get that project done? Whatever. Uh, it Now everybody will appreciate that, and some will respond, but everybody appreciates it, and it keeps your name out there, doesn't it? Huh?
Absolutely. Kathleen, one of our viewers, asked, do you recommend personal updates or more broad-based but blind copied updates? I'd say no blind copy updates, because then everybody kind of feels like they're on a template, right? I made the mistake early on in job search in 2016 by doing that, thinking, but I think it's a half tempted effort, so that, you can still have some template in that response, but you want to make it more, specific. Hey, it's the last time we talked was, 5 months ago, or what have you. Just something that relates it a little bit different, so I don't feel like I'm a copy and paste type of response.
Yeah, I totally agree. You don't want it to be a cookie cutter thing. Because for me, what we're talking about here with networking is building, nurturing, growing that asset that is personal relationships. Some are going to be your best friends, and some are just going to be acquaintances. But nevertheless, they know who you are. And when you're blind copy, when you're doing a cookie cutter thing, sending it out to the masses, that's not very personal in my view.
No, great. Well, shifting gears again now here, creating self promotion and personal branding. How can individuals create, show, and showcase their skills and stand out potential employers? This could be social media, like you were talking before, personal websites, or online portfolios, which I've actually seen some people actually like. They show up and they're like, if you're interested, you can go to this, and they've got it on a card or whatever. And that really helps with, paper and everything else, because again, I'm sure you started with people, because I was like that the first time. We sit down, I give you a one pager, and it's like, okay, that tells
Mm-hmm.
me that you're not even interested in me. You just want
Mm-hmm.
this to be a transaction, and you want to land a
Mm-hmm.
job.
Yep. I agree. I agree with you, George. I here again, this is all, for me, all about the relationship and all about filling up my full-time job with nurturing that asset, building that at. So as you, the better you know people, the better the stronger your relationships, the more they know uh, that what your skills are, what your talents are, and what ideas they might have for you, and they'll be thinking of you as long as your name is out there, and as
Yes.
long as you're nurturing that network. That's a critical piece. People don't do it, you know. And as you said just a little bit earlier, George, uh, the three aspects of effective networking. One is that the mindset is that it's all about relationships. The best time to do that is when you don't need anything. Okay, but and the third thing is there's no start and stop to it. You can't just, oh, thank God I found a job. I don't have to do that anymore. No, no, no. This is now a way of life. Huh? You can't do 10 a week, but you can do one a week, two every 3 weeks, whatever it is, you come up with it. But the point is that you're nurturing that asset as an objective for yourself.
No, I absolutely agree. And one of those things that we talked about is, social media is, just posting something that makes you unique and different. What happens, and I'm going to take a page right out of Kathleen Crandall's, right? Is that, okay, why do people come to you, and what makes you different than everybody else in operation supply chain, right? And so
Mhm.
if you can turn around and get those things and post them, you can keep your network up to date as you are still a subject matter expert. And if there's anything that you can do, reach out to me. And then that also forces even possibly new connections because they share and like and comment, right? And then somebody else sees it and says, "Hey, you know what? I need to meet this guy, Tony Rotondi."
And yes, George, you're right. That the job skills, the job talents, the career. But you're all, if you're meeting with those 10 people a week and it's not focused on, I need to find a job because the job, you got to trust that the job's going to fall out of the process. If you're not, then you're going to meet people who are uh, or fly fisher people or are skydivers or love baseball or have love Italian food or whatever it is. Whatever, you're going to have like-minded people that you want to be in contact with, and guess what? Those people know a lot of other people, huh? That's No, if you can fill up your full-time job with 10 interviews in a week, God bless you. Go ahead and do that. But it's highly likely that you're not going to do that. So while you're at it, you got to treat it like a full-time job, just like you had before. There's not run you're not running errands in the afternoons. You're not getting up in the morning and saying, "Yeah, well, maybe I'll no, it's going just like you did before, except that it's more difficult now because you have to display and practice the discipline of accountability and process and routine, etc.
Oh, absolutely. That's hitting the nail on the head. I think a lot of people tend to like, "Oh, George, just give me 10 recruiters' names." Well, unfortunately, the recruiter's responsibility is to find the best candidate for the client, not the client, or a potential connection, a job that they may be looking for. Because again, you might only hit 6 out of the 10 requirements.
Mhm.
So shifting gears a little bit again is, skill-based job matching. So, can we explore the idea of job search based on skill capabilities rather than traditional job titles, right? And I've actually had this where, people have gone into a network and after discussion and the CEO or CFO, or whatever, who you're speaking with, or a potential hiring manager, they create a job based on the discussions that you have. They know that they've had these gaps, and they find out that these 5 or 7 gaps really requires one particular skill and job set that you
Mhm.
might have.
Mhm. Uh, you said it there, George. The key is you got to get in the door. I mean, you didn't say that, but that was, you got to get in the door and display your wares. So if here again, if people are willing to meet with you, that's helping. That's getting you in the door with that person who will then, and that person may well be a person of influence, if not a decision maker somewhere. So, or they know a person of influence, and they'll get you in the door, as opposed to sending in your resume blindly. You now have a warm introduction. And it's all. I hate to keep going back to it, but it's the key. It's all about the network of relationships. People are comfortable with you, they know you, they understand what you're going through. They will help you get to the right person, the right people, so that you can show your wares.
No, I definitely agree. Um, it's actually one of the things when I was, I started networking, back at it heavy a couple of weeks ago. And the first week, I asked more inquisitive questions of people who knew me best, right, for the last 7 years or whatever, and possibly knew some of the people that I reported into. And I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to ask you a different question. I'm going to ask you, based upon all that you've known about me for the last 7 years, and then more importantly, all the people that I've reported to, where do you think my strengths lie, and where do you think I should be better positioned at? And ironically enough, totally different perspective that I received that I didn't even consider, right? It's like, well, George, based on this, here's where I see that you would be best at. And I was like, wow, I didn't even consider that as an option.
So you're getting a lot of advice and perspective from others, and that's one of the key parts of networking is asking for perspective, insight that perhaps you don't have, and also as you're networking, uh, you're giving advice and perspective that the other person doesn't have. It's a relationship thing, and it's not a transaction. It just isn't. So, and people always ask me, so at the end, so this is, oh wow, this is fantastic. What can I do for you? No, no, no. It's not a I do this, you do that. No, no, no. It's if and when something, that's the nature of a relationship. If and when something comes up, I will certainly I will certainly ask you, and I know the door will open.
I think that's a great response. But again, the first response is the individual asking, right? Because normally these are the simple things that people take for granted, they don't even do. So I find that less than 10% of the people I network with, especially in job search,
Mhm,
is that they don't even consider that. And it's like,
mhm,
part of the process, and I tell the first meeting really should be 70-30. Find
mhm,
out about the other person, listen to
mhm,
them, and then follow up that maybe something that they said they didn't even think that they said, but they, hey, you know what? I do recall that probably something I would have said. That tells them that you were genuinely interested and you took notes. And again, it's the simple things that can set people apart.
Totally agree. That's where those little notes come in on Friday afternoons. How did you ever grow any hair or whatever?
Hey, switching to the final topic is navigating remote work and gig economy, as we find that has definitely been increasing the last probably 5 to 10 years. Is talk about the rise of that and how you've seen that really kind of manifest, and what skills and traits are particularly valuable for thriving in a remote job-based role.
Well, first of all, I'm going to answer your first question, or the last part of your question first. Uh, what skills and talents? Um, More about, harp again, because it takes 42 times. The asset is the key here. Your network is the key. Uh, and people want to, so you can go and knock on the door and say, I'm now into fractional. I'm now into the gig. Yeah, so what do you got for me? Or who can you introduce? You can do, but you got to have that marketplace, don't you? And that's what the network is. So when you talk about fractional, that's a relatively new term, last 5 or 7 years, but it's been around forever. I mean, people are doing gigs, and uh, it's 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 it always gets down to uh, that marketplace, and how do I get my skills out to that marketplace, and how do I get the door to open? Because I'm a great accountant, I'm a great consultant, I'm a great lawyer, I'm a great practitioner, a professional practitioner. I'm really good at that. It's more than putting your sign out. You've got to get out and have those relationships. Why? Because that's how you're going to get your product service out there. But there's also tons of competition, especially now with the fashionable fractional terminology, EOS, etc. So uh, if you're going to do that, uh, it's jacks or better. You got to have you got to have the capabilities, the background to do this, to be the accountant. You have, I mean, that you can't do it without it. So or whatever. But they people always just take for granted. I'll just go out and I'll just get the business. That's the hard part. That's really hard, especially for people who've never done it, and then for even for people who are skilled at that while they're doing their practicing, their consulting, or whatever. They don't have time to go out and get that next gig, or to go out and get more gigs. So how do I do that? Well, that's where your marketplace comes in, i.e., the network of relationships, and they're willing to open the door for you. Huh?
No, I totally agree. As a matter of fact, one example, I was, working with somebody and they decided to do kind of that interim fractional stuff. Really young person, 26 years, and ironically enough, found two particular similar jobs that they were very skilled in, right? And, 26 years old, I think at that time I was, maybe probably a couple years out of the military. And I think my pay was maybe like $7 an hour or whatever. I know I'm aging myself again. But this person,
You are.
was doing both roles, had a very scheduled process, and was done by Friday afternoons every day. And they were pulling in 160,000 total in salary. And I was just like, wow, phenomenal, right? But
Mhm,
again, have to have a process, know
mhm.
how to manage, understand the obstacles, etc. And gig could be an opportunity for you, or any type of remote work, especially if
But
it's 100%.
George, you got to have that marketplace, and
Absolutely.
it's so much easier if you already know, if you have a relationship in that marketplace. You knock on the door, it will open. Huh?
No, I agree. Hey, Tony, I really appreciate you taking the time out. Just any last parting thoughts that maybe we didn't hit on a topic or whatever that would help people in that non-traditional sense of finding their opportunity.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'd like to kind of comment on is that I was working with a CFO and I asked them, we talk about, LinkedIn is really important for driving the right people to your posts and et cetera. And I said, what do you like to do? Said, I fly a Cessna. And I said, just take a picture of you in front of your Cessna and post it. And ironically enough, like 5 or 6 weeks later, they were going to interview with a board, and three of the board members, of course, were pilots. And they had, very similar types of plane. And that was kind of the whole discussion, right? And so he said, I didn't even really even get questioned a lot on my capabilities. It was more of the general discussion. We got along so well, I got an offer.
Well, and there you go. The parting thought is that networking is not only for today, building that asset, it's for a lifetime. So uh, it's the critical piece in, as you say, George, in finding that next great opportunity. Yes, but it's a critical piece in a lot of things that knock on the door and it will open for whatever you need.
I agree. Right from the man that everybody has, at least in Minneapolis area, if you haven't reached out to Tony and haven't connected, I was told early on, you won't find a job until you go through Tony's gates and get
Come on,
his
come
knowledge and
on.
experience. I'm serious. I'm serious. But
Thank you, George.
again, Tony, I really appreciate you jumping on here and sharing your experience and all the people that you've helped throughout the years. I just, on my behalf, want to say thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate
We'll
it.
put you, we'll put you back in the studio. We'll wrap up. So again, Love Tony Rotondi. He can help people not just in the Minneapolis area, and I've known he's well connected throughout the U.S. on all particular aspects. So I definitely say, hey, look at him and reach out to him through LinkedIn. Want to tell people that if you need more opportunities or more guidance, you can buy the book Hired, Cut Your Career Search Time in Half. It's available on Audible, Kindle, and Amazon. And we hope you guys have a great week. Prepare for the weekend to take advantage of next week and hit it out of the park.
Your mind will break.